chef's chicken sandwiches at Panera, freshly prepared with clean ingredients, spark an explosion of the senses. So when you finally taste it, it just confirms this is fantastic. And only at Panera. $0 delivery fee for a limited time.
Been 7 hours and 15 days since you took your love away. I go out every night and sleep all day since you took your love away. Since you've been gone, I can do whatever I want. I can see whomever I choose. And I can even eat my dinner in a fancy restaurant. But nothing, I said nothing can take away this blues, because nothing compares to you. It's been so lonely without you, like a bird without a song. Nothing can stop these lonely tears from falling. Baby, where did I go wrong? You see, I could put my arms around every boy I see, but they only remind me of you. I went to the doctor, guess what he told me? Guess what he told me? He said, girl, you better try to have fun, no matter what you do. But it's true, 'cause love
Meet Harper. She was born to care and always had your back. Like the time she spotted a friend's rogue retainer and made the save just in time.
I got you.
Today, Harper still has your back as a teammate at Truist, the bank with Truist One checking. When you start with care, you get a different kind of bank.
All the flowers that you planted, Mama, in the backyard, all died when you went away. And I know that living with you, baby, was sometimes hard.
Judith testing. Sorry, I already got in. Sorry, David. Mine went in quicker, so I'm testing. Judith testing. Thank you.
Hello, Guillermo. This is David, second English booth. How are you doing? Very well. Bye-bye. segunda cabina de inglés. This is Dave Sperling. Hello. How are you doing, Fernando? Very good. Okay, very good. Thank you, Rodrigo. Hasta luego.
Español. Cabina de español. Estela. Muy bien. Perfecto, muy bien.
Bueno, la CIM tiene una agenda enorme en el tema de democracia y de liderazgos. El primer ámbito tiene que ver con la gobernanza electoral, para que esta gobernanza electoral responda a las necesidades con las que fue creada, y es buscar los espacios de redistribución del poder. Después hay un programa interamericano sobre el liderazgo de las mujeres, donde generamos conocimiento y también tenemos cursos de capacitación. Hay un poderoso curso que ha llegado a más de 1000 mujeres con más de 15 ediciones, que es para candidatas electorales, en las cuales conversamos con ellas, pero también nos ponemos en una agenda de solidaridad y articulación y alianzas entre las mujeres, a pesar de las múltiples diferencias ideológicas o de partidos políticos. También hablamos de los temas de violencia política, porque no es lo mismo llegar que quedarse, y la violencia política es una forma de ejercicio de disciplinar a las mujeres para que vuelvan al mundo de lo privado y enfrentar la violencia, hacer buenas investigaciones, buenas leyes que permitan sancionar la violencia política. Es parte de las aspiraciones de la CIM en este programa de liderazgo de las mujeres. La aspiración histórica de las mujeres es estar en el mundo del público, que nuestro trabajo sea remunerado y que tenga un reconocimiento. COVID ha puesto en evidencia una profundización de las brechas existentes para el logro de este objetivo. Estas brechas existentes ahora dan cuenta de que podríamos tener un rezago de más de 2 décadas en el mundo laboral. Que el cierre de brechas, que se previó que podía tardar 100 años en cerrarse, ahora se habla de 135 años para cerrar la brecha entre los hombres y las mujeres. Entonces nuestro objetivo es que miren el derecho de las mujeres al empoderamiento económico, que el statement "quédate en casa", que es un viejo conocido del patriarcado, no sea que nos quedemos en casa siempre, y que entendamos que la inserción de la mitad de la población, de este talento humano que tiene una serie de ventajas competitivas, es necesario para el crecimiento económico. De manera que la CIM está colocando esta realidad, está colocando las necesidades de las mujeres y está haciendo unas recomendaciones de rutas para poder cumplir con el derecho al empoderamiento económico y con el crecimiento económico que requieren nuestras empobrecidas economías en tiempos de COVID.
Esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos no podemos ser neutrales.
More than 100 years since the inauguration of this building, the OAS headquarters, our institution still brings together the peoples of the Americas to address our responsibilities as a partnership of nations. As we look to the future, our work must also focus on the construction of a positive agenda that continues to favorably impact millions of lives every day.
The COVID-19 pandemic brought unprecedented challenges to our member states and the people we serve. In response, the OAS Secretariat for Integral Development adopted a three-pronged approach by 1. Adjusting our portfolio of existing projects, 2. Exploring new projects to meet emerging needs, and 3. Expanding multi-sectoral partnerships. The results achieved in 2020 demonstrate the resilience of our member states and the commitment of the OAS SETI to work with member states and partners towards our common goals in the development of our region. Our Network on Competitiveness launched the COVID-19 Ideas Accelerator, sharing 250 tools, health solutions, responses, and recovery plans. The Network for Labor Administration published a portfolio of responses from ministries of labor to COVID-19, sharing over 420 measures taken to protect workers, employment, and income. Likewise, the Inter-American Teacher Education Network series, Teaching STEM in Quarantine, provided 117,000 teachers with key tools to continue advancing STEM education during the pandemic. Through its network and platforms, the Inter-American Committee on Ports promoted international and national best practices, guidelines, protocols, and recommendations on COVID-19 safety measures and continuity of logistic operations. Initiatives such as the Education in Times of Change platform allowed us to meet urgent needs by offering timely tools on virtual education and a dedicated space for ministries to share strategies, actions, and solutions. Other programs such as the Row Fund stepped up, providing emergency grants to offset the challenges imposed on our students by the pandemic. SETI's partnerships are adding value to member states in the form of technical assistance, training, and access to tools and services. In partnership with leading private sector institutions, we offered micro, small, and medium enterprises access to online tools and training, increasing their visibility and participation in e-commerce, a key to their survival and growth in the pandemic and post-pandemic era. A new OAS SETI Facebook initiative provided 85,000 MSMEs across the region with capacity building opportunities and WhatsApp business tools to aid response, recovery, and resilience building. The Caribbean Small Business Development Center's program achieved real impact, supporting new businesses, expanding sales, and driving growth. A new network of Caribbean SPDCs will broaden the program's reach. The Inter-American Committee on Tourism, the C2, convened ministerial-level policy dialogue in an urgent response to the impact of the pandemic on the hard-hit tourism and hospitality sectors. Policymakers and experts discussed biosanitary protocols, travel and visa facilitation, among other critical areas for the sector's recovery. Partnering with the George Washington University and the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs, we went ahead with the scheduled first Indigenous Tourism Forum of the Americas, pivoting to a virtual format and convening over 240 participants from indigenous communities, the private sector, and governments. SETI also integrated sustainable development practices in the COVID-19 response. The pandemic is a daily reminder of the links between water, health, sanitation, food security, and nutrition. We ensured the continuity of our water management projects in the Plata Basin and worked with governments and partners in the design of an investment portfolio valued at $90 million. Additionally, the Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas continued to share relevant best practices and responses to the pandemic on energy and air quality. These few examples indicate our collective impact. We cannot do this alone. It is now more urgent than ever to address the region's structural weaknesses, to recover from the health, economic, and social crises occasioned by the pandemic and prepare for future shocks. It is imperative that we work together as we risk losing recent development gains and seeing millions fall back into poverty. It is time for the region to redirect course and pursue a more sustainable, resilient, and equitable future for all. We are in this together.
But the resilience building agenda is too big for any one stakeholder to address acting alone, and simply bringing together stakeholders, whether at the national, subnational, regional, or global level, is not enough. Effective, focused, and sustained coordination among stakeholders is paramount to provide countries with integrated and comprehensive support.
The OAS, as a hemispheric forum and honest broker, must continue to facilitate this process while we work with member states towards the attainment of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. Cooperation, collaboration, and partnerships that include all actors strengthen us, enabling us to be more than the sum of our parts. We can and we must work together. The future of our region depends on it.
Bueno, la CIM tiene una agenda enorme en el tema de democracia y de liderazgos. El primer ámbito tiene que ver con la gobernanza electoral, para que esta gobernanza electoral responda a las necesidades con las que fue creada, y es buscar los espacios de redistribución del poder. Después hay un programa interamericano sobre el liderazgo de las mujeres, donde generamos conocimiento y también tenemos cursos de capacitación. Hay un poderoso curso que ha llegado a más de 1000 mujeres con más de 15 ediciones, que es para candidatas electorales, en las cuales conversamos con ellas, pero también nos ponemos en una agenda de solidaridad y articulación y alianzas entre las mujeres, a pesar de las múltiples diferencias ideológicas o de partidos políticos. También hablamos de los temas de violencia política, porque no es lo mismo llegar que quedarse, y la violencia política es una forma de ejercicio de disciplinar a las mujeres para que vuelvan al mundo de lo privado y enfrentar la violencia, hacer buenas investigaciones, buenas leyes que permitan sancionar la violencia política. Es parte de las aspiraciones de la CIM en este programa de liderazgo de las mujeres. La aspiración histórica de las mujeres es estar en el mundo de lo público, que nuestro trabajo sea remunerado y que tenga un reconocimiento. COVID ha puesto en evidencia una profundización de las brechas existentes para el logro de este objetivo. Estas brechas existentes ahora dan cuenta de que podríamos tener un rezago de más de 2 décadas en el mundo laboral, que el cierre de brechas que se previó que podía tardar 100 años en cerrarse, ahora se habla de 135 años para cerrar la brecha entre los hombres y las mujeres. Entonces, nuestro objetivo es que miren el derecho de las mujeres al empoderamiento económico.
Good afternoon, everyone. Madam Chair, with your permission, we will proceed to confirm quorum for our meeting this afternoon. Madam Chair, this is a hybrid meeting this afternoon, and we have delegations both on-site and connected out of the Hall of the Americas. Participating in the meeting this afternoon, we have the following delegations: Barbados, Belize, Bolivia, Canada, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Dominica, Ecuador, El Salvador, the United States of America, Grenada, Guyana, Jamaica, Mexico, Panama, Paraguay, Peru, the Dominican Republic, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia, Suriname, Trinidad and Tobago, Uruguay, and Venezuela. We have quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Assistant Secretary General. Good afternoon. I am pleased to declare open this protocolary meeting of the Permanent Council, which has been convened to receive the President of the Republic of Suriname, His Excellency Chandrika Prasad Santokhi. The order of business is approved. I invite all meeting participants to rise as we welcome His Excellency President Santokhi. Please take your seats. Your Excellency Chandrika Prasad Santokhi, President of the Republic of Suriname, Ambassador Albert Ramdin, Distinguished Minister of Foreign Affairs, International Business and International Cooperation of Suriname, distinguished members of the official delegation, Ambassador Martin Schalkwijk, Permanent Representative of Suriname to the OAS, distinguished permanent and interim representatives of the member states, Mr. Luis Almagro, Secretary General, Ambassador Nestor Mendez, Assistant Secretary General, distinguished permanent observers, ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor as permanent representative of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and chair of the Permanent Council of the Organization of American States to warmly welcome to the House of the Americas the President of the Republic of Suriname, His Excellency Chandrika Prasad Santokhi. Excellency, the OAS Permanent Council extends to you cordial greetings in solidarity as fellow nations of this hemisphere, and we welcome you to the Organization of American States. Excellency, given your previous tenure as Chair and Vice Chair of the Inter-American Drug Abuse Control Commission, CICAD, you are keenly aware of the pressing issues facing our hemisphere today. Additionally, your presence today solidifies Suriname's commitment to advancing the work of the OAS, considering our organization's admirable role as the hemisphere's main political forum for dialogue and conflict resolution. We also acknowledge your government's firm commitment to supporting the core pillars of the OAS in matters related to peace and security, integral development, strengthening democracy, and protecting human rights. Mr. President, you are joining us at a critical moment as our organization will soon be holding the 52nd regular session of its General Assembly in Peru, during which member states will engage in dialogue and address the theme of the General Assembly, Together Against Inequality and Discrimination. We are certain that Suriname will contribute robustly to these discussions. As the permanent representative of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, a sister CARICOM nation, we share a deep commitment to advancing initiatives within the CARICOM region and the broader hemisphere in the areas of economic integration, human and social development, and security, which redound to the benefit of our people. Mr. President, thank you for joining us today. Following the order of business of this protocolary meeting, at this time, I am pleased to offer the floor to the Secretary General of the Organization of American States, Mr. Luis Almagro. Mr. Secretary General, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excellency, I am deeply honored to welcome you to the House of the Americas, a place you know very well because you were for 15 years the official representative of Suriname in the Inter-American Drug Abuse Control Commission, and you were elected as chair of CICAD for 1 year. Mr. President, your presence here today is a signal of your country's commitment to multilateral cooperation and collaboration. You assumed your office in July 2020 following a very competitive May 2020 general elections in Suriname. As is known by many, these elections were the first observed by the OAS during the COVID-19 pandemic, which was officially declared on March 11 of that year. The mission of the May 25th elections was innovative and working under very unusual and challenging circumstances. The Department of Electoral Observation, nonetheless, was able to accomplish its task and delivered an observation process in accordance with recognized international standards. Mr. President, you have been at the vanguard for the consolidation and promotion of democracy and development in Suriname. You have served as a parliamentarian and an opposition leader for many years. Your strong ideas, perseverance, dedication to the cause and leadership have all placed you where you are today, at the helm of the Republic of Suriname. Indeed, you have been a strong champion of democracy.
What is even more significant is that you led your country with a multi-ethnic society with diverse interests, but in which these societal groups live and work together peacefully. This is not an easy feat. Your governing coalition is testament to what is possible when political forces and interests put vested interests aside and work for the good of the country. This doesn't mean that there aren't problems or challenges, but your diversity is your strength, which allows conflicts to be resolved harmoniously. Suriname is therefore an example to the international community of multi-ethnic societal coexistence. Mr. President, as current chair of CARICOM, you exercise leadership on many issues confronting our region. This includes addressing the continuing fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic, the impact of climate change, particularly on a small vulnerable country and island nations, combating food insecurity and threat on transnational organized crimes. On each of these issues, be rest assured of the full support and cooperation of the OAS in search for solutions. We must continue to implement policies that seek to eliminate poverty and strengthen our efforts to spur economic growth, and more urgently, help countries of our region confront the threat of climate change. Mr. President, your country has been running a carbon-negative economy due to its vast forestry serving as a carbon sink for the world. It is why I am pleased to learn that forest wildfires in your country have reduced significantly by approximately 53% last year than in the previous year. However, the issue of climate change is worsening, and it is not just or fair for your country that contributes not even 0.5% towards the world's greenhouse emissions, much like the majority of CARICOM countries, to be punished by what can be controlled, which is the way we live our lives and decide to operate our industries. Sincerely, Mr. President, it is a root problem that requires not only attention, but action and appropriate funding to foster a climate-resilient environment for the region. It is our duty to tackle the climate crisis, a task that will require the investment of significant new resources. Climate change has brought with the high cost, and its mitigation and the adaptation it forces upon us have a price. We hope that international financial institutions will help with urgent resources. We also must continue with our fight against organized crime, especially in the field of drug trafficking and money laundering, as you did in Suriname when you acted as Minister of Justice. Your commitment to the rule of law and its even-handed application to all is well known. Excellency, thank you for taking the time to be with us today, and we look forward to joining hands with you and the people of Suriname in building a sustainable, resilient, and equitable future for the Americas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General. I now have I now have the distinct honor to offer the floor to His Excellency Chandrika Prasad Santokhi, President of the Republic of Suriname. Mr. President, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Muchas gracias. Ambassador Loven Gilchrist, Chair of the Permanent Council. Mr. Luis Almagro, Secretary General of the Organization of American States. Mr. Nestor Mendez, Assistant Secretary General, distinguished permanent representatives, distinguished representatives of the observer states to the Organization of American States, the staff of the Organization of American States Secretariat, ladies and gentlemen. Madam Chair, I thank you and the Permanent Council for this opportunity to address this esteemed organization. It is an honor
for me to address the permanent representatives of member states that make up the Western Hemisphere. A hemisphere that is one of the most peaceful regions in the world. Let us not forget one thing. We all, no one exempted, depend on each other. We live in an interconnected and an interdependent world, and as such, one will not stand if all others do not remain standing. That is the consequence of globalization. We have to work towards a more inclusive and united Americas. One which is not built on conditions up front, not on ideology or political convenience. The time for that has passed. I know the OAS from a number of years back, as was mentioned by the Chair and the Secretary General, when I was involved with the work of the Inter-American Drug Abuse Control Commission, the CICAD. I was police commissioner and for 15 years, the representative of Suriname to CICAD. I was also vice chair and later chair of this important body of the Organization of American States. We actually did a lot of good work through CICAD, and I hope that it is still going on. Madam Chair, the OAS is much more than a political organization because it has all these other organizations and committees which are part of the OAS system. If we look at the list of these entities, there are at least 50. There are committees, commissions, and councils on human rights, juridical matters against terrorism, on women, on integral development, and on telecommunication. There's a court on human rights and defense board. There are institutions and centers on agriculture, children, geography and history, and justice studies. And we should not forget the PAHO, which is a very important organization on health for all of our countries and people, and the Inter-American Development Bank, as well as the Inter-American Institute for Agriculture. In addition, there are different projects and programs and scholarships. Madam Chair, I mention this because it means that many people and organizations are involved in the work of OAS through all these entities. They contribute to the well-being of our people and our hemisphere in ways that some of us may forget. The variety of entities and projects also demonstrate clearly that the Organization of American States is doing substantial work in many areas, and that it is not just a political body which holds long meetings and adopts resolutions about conflict areas. Madam Chair, I wanted to present this rich perspective of the Organization of American States as a multilateral organization which has expertise in different areas, because I know that its work is not always appreciated enough. As President of Suriname, who has been part of CICAD for many years, I had a positive experience with the OAS, and I want to express that positive view of that Organization of American States. I wanted to encourage all of you, including the Secretariat and all entities, to keep this good work going. I know that the organization is struggling a bit with its budget, but don't let that discourage you. Since the 1st of July of this year, Suriname has assumed the chairmanship of CARICOM, and I want to report some of these issues that are of importance to the Caribbean region. In fact, yesterday I was part of a meeting of some CARICOM leaders with Vice President Kamala Harris of the United States of America and President Abinader of the Dominican Republic. That meeting was the concrete result of the agreement that was made between the United States and the Caribbean nations that were present at the Summit of the Americas in June of this year. Shortly after the summit, 3 high-level joint committees were formed. Yesterday, the 3 reports on food security, energy security, and financing were presented and discussed. The themes of the committees reflect some of the main issues that we are confronted with in the Caribbean and by extension in the wider region and the world. Insecurity with respect to food and energy and the access to finance. Then there is the overall threat of climate change, which is especially threatening small societies with small economies who do not have that vast reserves that large countries have. One dramatic climate disaster can wipe out a few percentage of the GDP of a small country. Together with the United States of America, we'll be working to address some of these issues under the umbrella of the U.S. Caribbean Partnership to address the climate crisis 2030 called the PAC 2030. I mentioned some of the main issues for the Caribbean, and of course, I hope that these issues will also be addressed by the different bodies of the Organization of American States. This means that the OAS should be able to also function as a center of knowledge because it should be able to assemble enough expertise from its member states and its immediate surroundings to address all major issues. Small countries do not have the vast pool of experts that are available here in Washington, D.C., and so we should be able to put specific requests to the OAS to assist when we are dealing with issues that do not need a lot of money, but primarily need some good advice. The OAS could give some guidance with these issues and point us in the right direction. Today, this morning, I had meetings with the IMF and the IDB to discuss a number of issues. Suriname has made an arrangement with the IMF in December 2021 for a 3-year IMF program. This was based on our own recovery plan for the economy and to restructure the relatively huge debt burden which otherwise would eat up the bulk of our income. When we concluded the program of IMF, the circumstances and the reality in the world were different. We implemented many reforms and worked on restructuring of the debt. But when, Chair, SG, ladies and gentlemen, when the situation in the world changed under influence of the war in Ukraine and its effects on supply chains, we were confronted, as all of your countries, with import inflation and more insecurity in several areas. The high inflation we have experienced in the past years in Suriname was supposed to drop, but when it did not happen, the government had to take some additional measures. Now we need to talk with the IMF about an adjusted program where the redesign will align with the challenges we face in the effective execution of the extended fund facility. And the good news is the managing director of the IMF had supported this view of Suriname and had agreed that the IMF program will be redesigned based on the new reality and the new circumstances in the world and also in my country. We also spoke with IDB about the project portfolio we have with them, focusing on improving social and physical infrastructure and supporting an increase of productivity, capacity, and jobs. And today, we had also the support from the IDB director that also the IDB program will be amended and adjusted and to have more direct involvement on the impact on micro level and to bring relief with social programs and with food security programs towards our people. We all know that the work of the OAS rests on 4 pillars, namely democracy, hemispheric security, integral development, and human rights. Democracy, rule of law, human rights, and good government must remain the principles upon which our politics and policies must be built. Often democracy and human rights are dominating in the discussions, but today I have pointed primarily the issues of development. As governments, we always try to find ways to improve life for our people, or at least try to avert disasters and decline. We try to feed our people, we try to provide energy at acceptable prices, and we need to get access to finance to get business and projects going. These issues require good governance and an atmosphere of trust, which also means the absence of human rights violation and, moreover, a democratic society and policy. At the same time, these issues are part of our security issues, including hemispheric security. For the Caribbean, the pillar of integral development is an important one, but it will not stand alone if it is not supported by the other 3 pillars. Nevertheless, we think that we should focus on integral development first because, as I have pointed out, the other aspects are interwoven with real development. Specific attention needs to be given to the challenges of small island states and countries with low-lying coastal areas. CARICOM and Central American nations especially require this attention to secure accessible development financing, resolve the debt burden, and a path towards sustainable development growth. In this regard, I want to urge this Permanent Council to have a special meeting on these economies and to review the procedures and mechanisms through which these countries are categorized. I believe that part of the discussion must include thorough consideration of the multidimensional vulnerability index as proposed by the Caribbean community. Yesterday, ladies and gentlemen, the President of the Dominican Republic addressed the Council on an important topic, the political, social, and security crisis in our sister member state, the Republic of Haiti. I can share with you that the Caribbean community is committed to discuss with the Haitian leadership and involve stakeholders ways to effectively deal with the gangs and improving the security situation. Only a stable, climate-free, fair, and credible elections can be held. Only then a process of governance and development can seriously start. All these activities towards Haiti must be directed by the sitting government in Haiti. And we need to align international and regional support so as to make the best use of the resources made available. Madam Chair, distinguished representatives, I've come to the conclusion of my remark. I just want to reiterate that the Organization of American States is deserving of their support. Let us cherish and strengthen the entities which are part of the OAS family and have the courage to make changes where the organization can be more effective. Moreover, let us show the people in our nations that the OAS is working steadfastly for their development, but also stimulates democracy and security and looks out for their human rights. In these days of uncertainty, the OAS must be a trusted and guiding force in the Western Hemisphere. It requires us to think bold and commit to decisions that will help resolve our problems and build on the opportunities towards a politically stable and economically prosperous hemisphere. I thank you for your kind attention and wish you, all of you, a most productive 52nd OAS General Assembly in the beautiful country of Peru in early October next month. I thank you. Muchas gracias. And may God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this protocolary meeting. Thank you all for attending. Before adjourning the meeting, I would like to extend to all distinguished participants a cordial invitation to attend a reception being offered by the Permanent Mission of Suriname in the Patio Azteca in honor of His Excellency Chandrika Prasad Santokhi. At this time, in keeping with social distancing measures, I ask those present to kindly rise from their seats and individually greet His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Suriname. We will start with the delegation closest to the exit. Thank you all very much. The meeting is adjourned.